This episode of the SwitchCast is produced by Costa Stopas, our honored Patreon member and Switch King. Hi everyone, I'm KC.
And I'm JV.
And this is the SwitchCast, the podcast for the Nintendo Switch barrister.
Well, my parents did want me to become a lawyer.
Everyone's parents did. My mom still, to this day, like, oh, he could have been a lawyer. I did the LSAT and everything, and I took my first pre-law classes, and I just realized wow, I am so in the wrong path. It was like I was playing a visual novel, and I just realized that I am not on the path towards the happy ending. I have to go back and change. I had to load a file and change a decision I made.
On my side, I think my whole family has just a bunch of lawyers in it. Like, my grandparents are all lawyers, uncles, aunts, lawyers, and my name is Justin, middle name Lawrence.
Justin. I got Justin sort of thing.
Yeah.
I get. I thought the Filipinos
did nurses.
They were big into the medical field, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But that's too cliche for my parents.
Oh, okay. They had to break from it a little.
Yeah, literally everyone else, every other Philippine member of the Philippine community in South Texas where I grew up, everyone was nurses, and they didn't want to do that. It's because there was an immigration program for the medical field that made it a lot easier for the Philippine immigrants to emigrate over to America in that field.
Oh, interesting to learn the background for that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. They had a similar program for teachers as well in certain areas of America, and I think it's interesting how that turned out, really.
Interesting, very interesting. But this is not a podcast about the medical background as much as we would like to talk about it. Honestly,
do you want to just restart that part?
No, that's fine. No, I like this. People got to learn the background between us, you know? This is
because we're real. We're real people.
And we definitely have a really good show for you guys this week because we have there's been a ton of news, and in fact there's a lot of litigious news this week that I thought was very interesting to go over. Plus the Labo has been making some headway already in markets, and you can kind of see the future of it molding out there, so we'll have some news about that. We have a few different reviews. You have not yet gotten to work on your Labo creation yet, right?
Right. But I definitely, when it comes to game time, I want to let everyone know what my plans are for Labo content in the future. So I do want to take a bit of time to talk about it.
And we have an interesting community pulse this week. There was a very popular conversation in the Facebook group just regarding the virtual console and the possibilities of that. And I just thought, you know what, that's a fine enough conversation to read some of your responses, and so everyone kind of gets a little bit of the feel of what people are looking forward to with that, since we might actually be closing in on finally learning something about the Nintendo Online service in the near future.
Oh, you're absolutely right. We are slowly but surely approaching E3, and even before that, there were talks of getting the full Nintendo Online details before E3.
Yes.
So, it's exciting stuff. I want to see how that goes.
Yeah, things are starting now. We're already getting like the rumors and some of the plans for E3, so that's definitely got my juices flowing. I did want to mention, though, in some like slightly tangential news with the Nintendo, it's just that I feel like lately I've been playing and I've been reviewing a lot of action-y games and a lot of just very fun games that are very fast and action-y, but I've been very hungry for some thinky games, and I realized that I haven't really had any heavy strategy or very deep thinking games on the Switch yet. And I feel like that's probably why, like I mentioned last week, how I've been playing Shadowverse like crazy, and we wanted to see that on the Switch.
Oh, yeah.
And I was teased when we saw the news this week that Nintendo actually bought up a 5% of the Psy Games, the company that does Shadowverse.
That actually really surprised me. It came at a time when we just hopped into Shadowverse. We were just starting to get familiar with Psy Games as a company.
Right.
And now all of a sudden it's integrating into our Nintendo livelihood. So
yes,
it's really strange timing that it turned out this way.
Yeah. I mean, it's clear that they're partnering with them for the sake of this mobile game that they mentioned, Dragalia Lost, which looks like to be a kind of an action RPG with some, free to play basis, and you unlock stuff. You could play more stuff with some pay options. So I still think that actual Shadowverse is far off. It's not like a very likely future anyway, but I still like to fancy that thought here and there.
It's definitely interesting because a partnership between two companies, that happens all the time. But in this specific case, Nintendo actually bought 5% of the company itself, which is kind of unusual for a partnership. It implies that there's more to it than that.
And actually, this might tie into another piece of news that we'll talk about a little later that might hint at, again, still far-fetched, but I like to play with these little things, especially in this section of the show. I'm allowed to just, imagine what I want. That they could be working on a original card game that would utilize some new technology that they've been patenting recently that could tie into something like this, using a company like them that has their own card game background and then combining it with this technology that they're working on. So we'll see how this goes.
You know how much I love card games.
Yes. I honestly, I need something very brain thinky like that. And also the next tangent this leads to is I've been watching a ton of streams of people playing like Shadowverse.
Yeah.
And it's pushed me to finally start pulling the trigger. I'm going to get myself a new desktop and I want to start streaming some games soon.
That's going to be fun.
I really, really do. I sit down every night I start playing. I realize if I had that capability on my computer, I could just switch it on, play for an hour, or two each night that I've been playing these games. And I'd love to share it with you guys. And I think it's about time. I think I'm ready. And you guys have definitely been, especially the patrons, have definitely been supporting us enough that I think that we could invest in some more streaming capabilities for the SwitchCast.
It's definitely interesting that you mentioned that, because I actually independently bought a webcam for the Labo content that I was looking into in the future.
Oh yeah, you mentioned, yes.
Yeah, and this is a streaming webcam, and honestly, my whole setup with just a little bit of tweaking, we can get some streaming going. So if you do that, Casey, I can do that as well, and it'll double up the time that we have going on Twitch representing the SwitchCast.
Awesome. So Nintendo, get on some like new Civilization level strategy game, something like that, or a really good card game.
Honestly, Casey, if once Wargroove comes out, I feel like we'd have a ton of fun streaming that.
I think so, but I mean, that I still consider games like that, like the Advance Wars type games, those are medium weight strategy games.
Right. You want something heavyweight.
I still want something that's like a Civilization level
mind grind.
Yeah, mind grind with stats and branching tech trees, and just something that is super heavy that, like, just really make me have an aneurysm to play.
I can see that. I can see that.
All right, let's talk about the things we have been playing over in the game time now.
Let's go.
All right, game time. Now, JV, just a quick recap. I will talk quickly about, I know you said you haven't had a chance to work on the robot part of the Labo because, I mean, it is a big project.
It is, yeah.
You kind of need, like, the weekend free to do that, really, right?
Right, exactly. It's definitely a all-in type project. Unfortunately, I was out of town for a wedding this weekend, so I wasn't able to get to that robot kit. However, I have quite a number of plans for future content with this Labo stuff, Casey.
Okay, very cool, very cool.
Yeah.
I'll just update the listeners. I did post the video of me making the RC car, and I also have taken a video of me making my second of the toy cons, which is the little motorcycle bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, so
the little handle.
Yes, the little handle, pretty cool because it actually even ties into some news. We'll show you a little later, also. But I you know what? I went into it. It was the first one that was like a bit of a tougher one. It took about, well, at least the game told me it would take about 60 minutes or so to do. I will say it did not take me as long as the game said. I'm very cautious, and so I just
Right.
I always go over the instructions over and over again. I don't think if I wasn't being super cautious, it would take me as long as it did, but it wasn't that hard. The game, everything. I'm so surprised that everything looks like I just have a bunch of pieces of paper, like I'm doing origami, and then just slowly it all comes together before you realize it. It's just done. It was not hard. It really is definitely easy enough that a child can do it. So no matter how complicated the items look yet.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of the Nintendo Labo. It's just all these little pieces of cardboard come together, and it becomes more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, but like I said, I'll have the video up of that, so you guys can just watch me playing or building that and playing it a little bit. The game that was involved with it, this is the first actual game I got to try with it. I'll just say that it was functional. It's fun. It gives me a reason to play with this thing. Unlike the RC car, though, like I have to say the RC car does have that edge that it does feel more like just a standalone toy, in that it doesn't need the game to have fun with and do stuff.
It's not tied to the game necessarily.
Right. And I think that's almost like, that's the direction I'm more interested in seeing future toy cons go down. But I feel like most people are working on actual game tie-ins, which is fine. I think that's going to be like the two main branches they go in: standalone toys and things that are game linked. But still, I had fun with it. It was cool, but it did make me want to put it down probably a little faster than I put down the RC car, because the RC car I still want to make battle bots out of.
Yeah, I agree. The RC car definitely has that edge, because you can likely directly interact with other RC cars in a way.
All right. Again, you'll see all my views on that in the YouTube video. JV, why don't you tell us about what you've been playing this week?
All right, so I'm actually really excited to talk about this particular game, especially because it was a special request from... Yeah, I love those special requests, and we got this from Hello Govna. On the Discord chat, on our Facebook group. He's a very, very appreciated member of our community, and he just wanted to get the word out about this particular game. So what I'm talking about today is Mulaka. If you haven't heard of it before, Mulaka is a 3D action adventure game that kind of reminds me of a uniquely themed classic 3D Zelda game, more around the Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask era. Okay. Or maybe even something akin to Okami or even Oceanhorn, I guess.
No relation to Moana, is there?
No relation whatsoever. The game is actually set in the Tarahumara region. And it heavily explores the depths of Mexican mythology.
Oh, okay. That's and
it's
less explored region of culture.
It's definitely a mythology that isn't commonly explored in gaming as a whole. So then the world you're traveling through is filled with, spirit, like creatures that you have to fight, and your overarching goal is to collect these soul or spirit stones to prove your strength throughout the game and convince these Tarahumaran gods that you're worthy of their assistance. It's a unique theme, and it's especially since I've been playing God of War lately, and you're seeing a pantheon of gods now in the Nordic pantheon, and hopping into Mulaka, you're seeing a more Mexican mythology. I find it kind of striking.
All right, that's pretty cool. Does it feel like it's set in a very is it like a very Mexican kind of world? Is it very arid locations, or to have a whole variety of landscapes?
The landscapes are generally kind of similar. It's very deserty. The environment has a lot of browns to it. Now, as you traverse through different areas, you experience different tones and different aesthetic settings, but it's mostly a very desert-like area. However, the overall aesthetic of the game is actually pretty striking if you look at it just a bit more closely. And the characters and enemies are composed of stylistic polygonal shapes that kind of portray a simplistic form without really going into incredible detail. So in that sense, it kind of reminds me of something like Journey.
Okay. Are they mostly like monsters or animal type things that you're fighting?
You're mostly fighting animals, actually. They're twisted forms of animals. So you run into stuff like giant frogs or mantis men or rock creatures. That's the type of stuff you're fighting. You're not really finding anything incredibly out there.
Or corrupted nature creatures.
Yeah, in a way, that's how it seems. I've been looking at screenshots before I actually played the game, and some of the posed art looks really good, but I can see how some people can be put off by this, simplistic polygonal art style. Have you seen the graphics at all, Casey?
I've been looking at some screenshots while we're speaking.
Yeah, it's the graphics may seem a little off-putting in screenshots, but I can assure you the game actually feels better than it looks in that sense.
Animates smoothly and nicely.
I do have a bit of an issue with the running animation of the main character.
Okay.
Everything else animates pretty regularly. You might sense a bit of choppiness every once in a while, but other than that, everything moves as expected. However, the running animation of the main character seems like he's doing some sort of silly marionette style run that kind of reminds me of QWOP. Do you know about QWOP?
No, I'm not. Oh, is that the walking game?
Yes, it's the 4-button walking game where you have to move each limb one at a time, and it causes you to fall over and ragdoll. And while it's not that ridiculous, and you do run fast, and the movement itself is silly, the animation is kind of silly overall. Okay,
but I can see that.
Other than that, the gameplay and the animations feel pretty smooth, and I've been ignoring the running aspect of it, and everything else just flows quite well.
Okay, so what are your abilities? I mean, how do you just fight with the spear? Do you get new powers and stuff as you go? Is it really Zelda formula-like?
Yeah, the gameplay is actually quite straightforward. So you have your standard light and heavy attacks, and you do have a ranged attack with the spear that you mentioned that you actually control with motion controls.
Oh.
So you use those attacks to fight off the mythological forms of the normal creatures, and then from there you collect spirit stones, and as soon as you collect a certain number, you reach a final boss of the stage. Beating that boss unlocks the next level. However, what actually makes the combat interesting are the various spiritual transformations that you inherit throughout the game.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah, that's the part that I found most interesting about the game. You do have some sort of energy or magic bar, which is a resource that you use for your transformations. And it actually becomes quite fun managing that resource on the fly while you fight the different enemies. So I guess for a couple examples, you can transform into a bird that lets you, float and hover in the air for a certain amount of time. You can transform into a bear that is a big, heavy, brutish physical attack. And you can even transform into a tricksy snake that moves around really quickly and leaves an ice trail behind him. And that you can use those forms in different puzzles that you use to progress through the game. I thought that was actually really fun.
That's pretty cool. Now you made it sound like, were you just using the term stages and what you meant was like there's different dungeons you find, or are you like actually playing through this game in a stage by stage basis? Is it not like an open world exploration style?
That's definitely a good question, because this is similar to Okami in the sense that you have different areas that you can explore. However, you're restricted to that area until you unlock the puzzle, collect all the stones.
I see. Okay.
Which opens up the path to the next area available to you. So it might not be strict stage by stage by stage like in a Mario. It is an exploration, not really open, but it is a large area that you can explore.
Okay, so it's not like they give you the total world, but you'll have like this quadrant of the map. Do what you want to do, explore, do some side quests, and then finally when you figure out how to unlock and beat the boss, another big section of the map opens up for you to, okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. And each, I guess, area has that gameplay loop where you collect 3 soul stones, you reach a final boss, you defeat the final boss, you unlock the next stage, you collect the soul stones, and whenever you're actually doing the whole collection phase, there are waves of enemies that you have to fight around the area, and you utilize your different varied attacks and forms to tackle the patterns of the enemies. And I find that to be a pretty satisfying gameplay loop.
Okay. Are there like villages and people that you run into too?
Yeah, there are people and different areas that you can visit. The NPCs aren't particularly interesting. They're all single line characters, and they serve their purpose to guide you in a direction or explain something or just give a slight bit of flavor. But overall, I think what really interested me about the game and the world is just how unique and interesting the monsters are portrayed.
Oh, okay.
And the environment is portrayed. Because they are mythological twists on kind of normal creatures.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do they fight in interesting ways? Are they challenging?
Yes. Different monsters do have different attack patterns. So you have to utilize your transformations to approach fighting them in different ways. And with that in mind, I actually want to bring up how interesting the boss battles were. I didn't expect a game this independent to have as in-depth boss fights as it does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were actually really interesting. So they do have the standard structure of, you fight a boss, you figure out where the weak points are, and then you take advantage of those weak points. Kind of like in Zelda and Okami. But instead, in this game, you're actually doing various transformations to get into the correct position to attack those weak points. One of the bosses that I found pretty interesting was, I guess, this spirit blob-like creature where he's well above your reach, and you see that the weak points are at the very top of his head.
Okay.
And you have to utilize your bird form in unique and clever ways to maneuver yourself up in order to throw your spear at those weak points. And I was very surprised at how in-depth and how diverse the different bosses gets. And it was interesting being able to use the transformations in ways, and even combining the transformations in ways that would help me defeat the boss. And that's what I found fascinating about Mulaka.
Very cool, very cool. I gotta say, just looking at the different the environments and stuff, it is kind of refreshing to see a game world that isn't a by default European forest feel to it.
Yeah.
It is a new kind of thing, and it is kind of it's a lot brighter and feels at least different than I'm not just playing through the same old medieval fantasy setting.
Now, I can definitely see how the art style might be off-putting to some people. For example, when I was playing and David watched me play a little bit, he saw that everything seemed really polygonal, and at quick glance, you can kind of understand that it might seem really lazy or not really well refined. But I think as you progress through the game and see how every little item that's in the world is using this art style, you get to appreciate it a bit more.
See, the way I see it, it just kind of, it actually feels like it matches the art style of, like, I don't know what their word for it be, but just kind of like ancient tribal drawings. Like they're not supposed to look like lifelike people. It's supposed to look like almost like like an ancient cave drawing, or not like that, maybe like something on the
Right,
side of like a
come to
Mayan
life.
temple, like those kind of Mayan temple caricatures you would see.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I didn't think about that while I was playing the game, but you're right. I could see that being the case. And honestly, there are just some scenes where I was really surprised at how the art style was able to convey depth. And looking up in the sky, you can see how polygonal the clouds were, but it was really well done in a way to convey that they're clouds. In the same way that the trees are just a clump of polygonal shapes, but they portrayed a tree in an interesting manner. It's just one of those games that it looks better as you play it, as opposed to the screenshots.
Okay, very cool, very cool. And I'm going to put you on notice, JV, that this is now your Mario in the way you always say polygonal when
Polygonal?
Polygonal. It's just the emphasis on the wrong syllable situation. It just feels so wrong to hear polygonal like that the whole time, though. I'm sure it's not incorrect. It's just weird to me. It just feels like you put your pants on backwards.
Interesting. Let's see what people think about that. You know what? I will be the better person, and I will correct myself. So I enjoy the polygonal nature of the Mulaka's art style. Overall, the game it has a lot more depth, and it has a lot more to it than I initially expected. This is a game that you could very easily miss, and it's something that's a bit of a treat since you don't see many games exploring that setting. And if you can get over the polygonal art style, and if you're really into the Okami classic 3D Zelda style gameplay, I feel like you really shouldn't miss out on this game.
Very cool.
It's $20. That's a pretty good price for something like this, and I would recommend it.
Awesome. All right, glad to hear it. All right, so that's Mulaka.
Mulaka.
All right, I actually got to play something this week that is I guess it's more or less a sequel to a game that I was a very big fan of, actually, on the 3DS. I think a lot of people might remember Scribblenauts was a game that really took a lot of us by storm, like a while.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those games that that really sparked people's creativity for a while. Mm-hmm. Since it really seemed like when they featured Scribblenauts in demos or in trailers, it seemed like you can do almost anything. And the combinations of characters and tools you can throw in there, it seemed really fun and novel.
Yeah, and they made a lot of spin-offs, again, like kind of sequels. They had like the Marvel or the superhero themed one, and they added a bunch of licensed characters that you can make I forget if they were actually licensed or if it was like you could be like sort of the Joker or sort of superheroes like that. But they had a few different themed ones, and they all followed this really interesting gameplay. And if anyone's not familiar, Scribblenauts is a series where the general mechanic of the game was the ability to pretty much create anything you want by typing in the name of something, and you could just poof. And it just had this really in-depth dictionary at its disposal where you could write in anything from a falcon to Cthulhu to
a unicorn,
a monk. You could monkey wrench,
a chef, a cop,
pretty much
a chair,
anything in the
balloon.
Dictionary you could make appear, and it would interact, and it would have certain rules. And if you made a cop, it would chase down a burglar in the game, and it would have certain parameters like that. And puzzles were solved, and so on and so forth. And it was really great. And in fact, it was one of the games where people just forgot about the puzzles half the time and just were like, oh, I want to see what happens if I can make, a Godzilla monster fight God.
Yes. Honestly, the sandbox was part of what made Scribblenauts so much fun.
Yes. So now Scribblenauts Showdown. This is actually the first time I can think of that the series has tried to do something drastically different with the formula. Now, they still have the ability to use words and poof, pretty much anything you want will be incorporated into the game. But this one goes someplace very different with it, in that the main gameplay of this one is this kind of multiplayer minigame showdown. So there's 2 ways to actually play this. You can just do this minigame showdown mode where you can just play 2 players and against the computer or somebody and you'll just go through these different minigames that each one incorporates the word choosing in a different way. Like there's one mini game where you're piloting these little hovercrafty things and you have to pilot them through these buildings and drop an item into these landing pads to deliver them and score in a certain amount of time. Now, the thing is, at the beginning of a stage like that, there'll be like a spinning wheel and it'll pick a letter or land on a category. And before the stage begins, you're going to put in a word and you're going to fill in something that fits that category. And whatever that thing is, you'll either get a bonus in the game based on how accurate it fits, or it'll just, it'll have some effect on the game in general. For example, let's say in that hovercraft game, they might say, all right, pick a word that belongs in your garage. And if you do pick something that fits the theme, like let's say you write a car or a wrench or something like that, that's the thing you'll be delivering in the mini game, right? So like you have cars you'll be piloting, it'll be dropping cars off on these landing pads, and they'll give you some bonus like extra speed or that, maybe you regenerate faster if you crash, stuff like that. And some of the other games, like there's one where you're racing the other person and you have to name a thing that you ride, so they might pick a letter. Okay. And you have to, what's a fast, and you have to think of something fast, right? What's the fastest letter J thing you could think of? And Jaguar might go really fast. And then you just go and you play this little mini game where you tap, tap, tap and jump over obstacles. And the other end of this is if you want to go for a little more of a complex game, I guess, is there's like the board game mode, which is basically the Mario Party type game where you have a very simple board and now you're playing the mini games in order to advance on the board. They give you a hand of cards actually, and the cards all have like either it could just be like move forward 4 spaces or steal a card from someone, but most of them
so it's not a dice roll like in the Mario Party
correct
games. There's a bit more choice to it.
There's a little bit more choice, so most of the cards are tied to a certain mini game. So you're going to be picking the mini game that you'll be playing, and the winner will get the advantage on the card. So let's say it says move forward 2 spaces. You're going to play head-to-head in that mini game to see who gets that 2-space movement, or maybe you have a card that lets you swap places with one of your opponents. You're going to play them, and if you win, you get to swap places with them. That kind of stuff. And then finally, they also have the sandbox mode, which is pretty much closer to what the original games were. They just give you a little zone. There's some star rights to find and, little puzzles like, you'll be on the Titanic and there's like, this chef can't get this chicken, you have to help him catch the chicken so he can make dinner or something like that, or find the mermaid who's hiding out in the ocean, those things. And then you get the star rights, and there's a few different ones of those. And then you can use star right points you get from all these different modes to unlock new characters, special words that are unlocked for certain stages, costume options because you can make your own custom character for the other modes, that kind of stuff. All right.
Oh boy.
So that's the basic game, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
Honestly, though, it doesn't feel like this was a thoroughly put together direction for the game.
Interesting, because honestly, the concepts of Scribblenauts and the trailers made it actually seem like there was something to this.
So first off, let me look at the board game thing here, right? And I said it's kind of like a Mario Party sort of thing, but it's really such a bare minimum of a Mario Party game.
Party board game?
It's just a single straight line that goes to an end. There's no special spaces. The cards, all the games, all the mini games are 2-player games, and they're extremely simplistic. Some of them are ridiculously so that honestly the only thing that matters is who picked the better item for it. For example, there's one, it's like Medieval Mayhem or something like that, where you both have to pick a weapon that you're going to create. And, they'll give you like a letter, and then basically the game will rate the weapon as how appropriate it is, and it'll give you a bigger boost. And all it ends up being is when you run at each other and you just mash A until one of you's dead. Even though they give you the stage and it makes it look like you're supposed to jump around and have some kind of cool action-y combat, the game is not designed to be a combat game.
Right. It's designed for you to be creative and to solve a puzzle, but
right.
Translating that type of gameplay into that Clash party style game doesn't seem like it works.
It also was kind of weird because, like, I guess the game rates it again based on the theme matching, because I got the letter S and my opponent picked spear and I picked a submachine gun.
Oh, wow.
And my submachine gun did, like, no damage. And all he did is he ran up and he stabbed me twice and it was dead. And it was literally, there was no skill or strategy involved in the action. It was just basically a see who thought of a better word and then go run at each other and slam it, and that's it. It was,
and in that case, it's medieval, so you kind of had to go into the medieval theme.
Right.
So if it was more related to the theme, it was considered more powerful?
Almost feels like, why bother making me actually go and run at them and fight? Because there isn't enough to the controls to make combat an interesting aspect. It's just basically, they might just show you, hey, you get 10
like filler
points.
Gameplay.
You get 7 points because you thought of a cooler weapon. Over. Next thing. It's just a stupid, not really, executed thing.
Or they could have done something like Advance Wars style, where it's just an automated graphic of two things clashing.
Yeah, maybe something like that. But it just felt like such a lazy kind of execution of a mini game, and it just is very joyless to do that one.
It's so disappointing to hear that for Scribblenauts, because it's such a joyful appearing game.
Yeah. Some of them are okay, but again, another one, there's another mini game that's supposed to be like a rhythm game, and you get to pick what the word you choose for this one is what your character is dressed as, and you get a little bit of a bonus point for picking something that fits the category they pick. So like they might pick a category of, someone who works hard or whatever, or like someone who's in the medical field, let's say, and I'll write Filipino, and
all right,
and
call back,
and they'll give you a bonus points at the beginning for picking that, and then after that, it's a rhythm game without matching music. It's just just this very dull and not synced up beat just going on, not really any song, and then the arrows come by and you have to hit a direction with the joystick to match which way the arrows go, and it's always the same kind of pattern. It's like arrow, 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 and then maybe like 20 seconds in it's like arrow, 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 and it's just like nothing to it. There's not even like different songs, there's no rhythm to it. It's just matching up the arrow with the dot that you have to hit it over, and it's so perfunctory. There's nothing added to make this a interesting or fun mini game. And
how does that rhythm game correlate with the item or the creative thing that you chose?
All you get is a few points at the beginning for how accurately you
a bonus point type situation.
Yeah, like I started out with, since I got a pretty good answer to one of them, they gave me like 250 points to start, and at the end, like the ending score, just so how much it matters, was like 2,300, right? So I got a little bit of a boost for having a good answer, but it's not like it, and then your character, whatever you made him look like, dances, so it's like, it's funny, I made a construction worker dance or something like that. It's not even like that interesting to pick something like that. It's just like, all right, I almost felt more limited. I'm like, I want to pick something crazy and cool. Instead, I'm kind of like tied in with these, these themes that weren't even that crazy interesting sounding.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great, to be honest. When I initially imagined this game, I was thinking that it could be, Green Lantern style showdowns where you're really tethered to your creativity. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. Like he summons an elephant. You summon a mouse to scare it away. He summons a cat. You know, like you try to like summon things or do things to like interact with each other in fun and weird ways. But that's what the trailer made it look like. Something at least related to that. But no, it's just items that get incorporated
what's
into
close
the game.
to the theme, and if it's closer to the theme, you just get a score. That doesn't feel like it's particularly satisfying.
Like and then there's like a racing mini game, right? And you have to do the hurdles, and like I said, the one that you have to pick something to ride. And in this one, it's always better if you could think of something that it's better for you strategically if you could think of something that flies, because even though it makes the game more boring, because if you could think of something that flies, you don't have to jump over the obstacles, and all you end up doing though is tapping A. You just tap A the entire race. So if you had a falcon and he's running on a furnace, or what's a F thing you can ride? Let's say a
floating disc.
Yeah, okay. Let's say we're on a something that doesn't fly. I'm trying to think of something like a ferret. Okay, let's say he picked ferret and you picked falcon. Okay. All right.
Sure.
And let's say the game rated them both the same speed, right? He's now playing the game, tapping and jumping, and all you're doing is tapping for the race because your thing flies. It goes over everything, which I guess makes sense, but it just makes the game boring. It's like, I understand that all right, great, you gave me an advantage because I thought of something flying, but now it's like I'm always trying to think of a flying thing, and that's, again, now you've limited my imagination because I'm incentivized to narrow my ideas. And that's I don't know if there's any other secret advantages you get. Maybe if I had like an elephant, it would just bust down obstacles. But when it forces the gameplay to degenerate to nothing but tap A fast, you've not made a good minigame. It's just very, very disappointing. And I'm sorry. Like, I played even the sandbox mode was okay. But honestly, all it made me think was, I just wish this was, an original...
Better.
Like, I just wish it was a regular Scribblenauts game with something new added to the original Scribblenauts formula, not trying to take it in this direction and just put this very minimal work into this party game direction for it.
Yeah, that's not great. I had so much... endearment towards this game when it first came out. And I was really excited to hear about Scribblenauts Showdown because the whole quote-unquote PvP element of it really interested me. But it seems like it's wasted potential, to be honest.
No. Yeah, if they went the full route of let's make a Mario Party style game and had 4-player games that had some very interesting kind of nuances and did some, and maybe incorporated the words that you threw in there in some unpredictable fashion. Like maybe even had the words that you chose interact with each other. Like, you picked snake, I picked mongoose for my item. Now our items are fighting each other unexpectedly, something like that.
Right.
Some other than some pure, I picked a better item, therefore I now run twice as fast as you. Or there's like a food eating contest one, and if you pick a smaller thing to eat, it's just you now have an easier time winning. And it's just like, I don't know. So anyway, I do not recommend Scribblenauts Showdown for anyone. Honestly, if you want, I would say play the DS games before you pick this one up.
Well, Scribblenauts is on, iPads and iPhones, on mobile phones, so that might be an option as well.
If you're hungry for anything that this does, and I think that it's still a brilliant series, go try those out, but don't bother with this one at all. Sorry.
Well, that's a bit of a bummer.
All right, so let's go over to the news rundown, and let's see what's going on in the world of Switch.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, news rundown, and here are your headlines. And in typical fashion, Nintendo releases their biggest drop of the week only hours after I posted our last podcast.
Yeah, Nintendo, stop being so rude. Give us a heads up before you release big stuff like this.
So yeah, they actually have a new CEO leading the company, and he's actually surprisingly young.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how you have to do it nowadays. You kind of want a younger perspective to, bring you into a newer era.
It's just very surprising because they are very, the impression I've always had of their management is they're very traditional, and they put a very big emphasis on age and experience. But yeah, at 46 years old, Shuntaro Furukawa is the new CEO, and with their with 68-year-old Mr. Kimishima just being the interim one until they picked somebody. But he's an interesting sounding guy. I like the quote he did say during their most recent financial statement. Nintendo should focus on things that only we can provide. Otherwise, Nintendo would lose a reason to exist. And I think that's a pretty positive outlook for them. That's kind of what they do. They focus on the things that only they could provide until everyone else starts copying them.
Yeah, that's been Nintendo's MO for a while now. And to hone in on that is really advantageous for them as a company. The Nintendo Switch is such a unique product, and taking advantage of all of its capabilities that the other consoles can't provide would really be a benefit to them.
And his recent favorite Switch game is Golf Story, so...
That's so cool.
Very solid choice.
I like it.
I respect his choice.
A nice nod to the indie developers out there.
All right. Okay, so did you pick up on this story about the patent probe?
Yeah, so I looked into it, but I wasn't really sure how to grasp it.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a company that has kind of been harassing Nintendo for a while now, on and off.
Game Vice.
Yes, Game Vice. So they are, I guess I'll just say, they're pretty much patent trolls. They've been trying to sue Nintendo over various pieces of technology that they claim to have patents for in the past. And their latest attempt is they have a patent on, I guess, attachable control accessories on the side of a tablet, and they have some like very primitive looking console that looks like they've tried to make or just never actually created, that looks vaguely Switch-ish with some detachable controllers on the side of it.
Yeah, that's what really kind of made it difficult for me to really grasp the story. I wasn't sure if they had any sort of basis or merit towards their complaint.
Yeah,
towards their patent complaint.
They are actually demanding that Nintendo stop importing Nintendo Switch to the US.
Yeah, that's not gonna. No.
I think so. What their general, my general idea of what they're probably trying to do is they're just hoping Nintendo will probably play them some hush money or just be like, hey, instead of
like
taking
a
this
settlement type situation.
Yeah, they're just kind of hoping for a settlement. But Nintendo in the past has generally fought them. They have the resources to go to court. They've never, at least nothing publicly has ever come of these things. It sounds like they usually get them thrown out. I don't know. To me, it sounds like it's one of those things that seems so general. Like, okay, I have controllers that attach somehow.
To a tablet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, in that case, they should probably sue like Mogas or 8-bit dude type situations where this type of stuff has existed before. You can dock your phone onto a controller. That's happened before.
Right. Yeah.
There's the NVIDIA Shield that's kind of similar in form factor.
Right. Yeah. All those things. Exactly.
They really are just going after Nintendo for the money, and this is not... I don't think this is going to hold up very well.
Yeah, I know, but everyone takes their shot, and so anyway, we'll see how that goes in the time, but I'm just hoping this, just gets kind of taken care of and thrown out fast.
Yeah.
But also in the patent world, this is what I was alluding to earlier, Nintendo and Game Freak, recently put in a patent for a new type of card.
Huh. Card.
Yeah, I guess along the lines of maybe a like the amiibo cards, but it has these images that can change based on information the card receives from a game.
Interesting. So you triggered me positively with the mention of a card.
Yes.
Is this some sort of like an LCD card, or is it a lenticular style card? I'm not sure how this is detailed.
Yeah, I just see it kind of has like a little display screen on the card. Maybe it's something a little thicker. Maybe it has like a very primitive image on them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just supposed to react to something in the gameplay. Maybe it like even gets laid on top of something related.
But the most interesting aspect
to me and you particular was this part that they noted in the patent application is, quote, the player can capture the character of the wild monster by operating the player character. Furthermore, the player can raise the fellow character and raise its level. The fellow character may evolve, deform, in some cases. Does that sound like any kind of game that you can imagine?
This reminds me of Pokemon, right?
That's what that sounds like this is going to be incorporated in. So if very possible...
Well, this patent was submitted by Nintendo and Game Freak.
Yes.
So if you don't already know, Game Freak is the company responsible for developing the Pokemon games. And this might be part of the next generation of Pokemon games.
It's very possible.
Be fascinating?
If not the next Pokemon generation, it could be like an accessory that something along the lines of the Pokewalker from the Heart Gold Soul Silver series.
You know, what would be fascinating to me is if these are NFC cards, kind of like in the Amiibos, and you would actually physically trade the cards with people, and that card stores the Pokemon.
I mean, there's a lot of great possibilities just like that. That's also pretty great. But yeah, it does seem like it's going to have some sort of NFC style. I mean, I guess that's how it'll communicate. It probably does have to have that kind of disc in it to communicate with the Switch.
Right. And the Switch is perfectly capable of reading NFC chips. So, I feel like the possibilities of this type of game or this type of functionality is so limitless.
It's definitely something that speaks to us. It's card based and it's Pokemon possibly related. So I'm definitely interested, and honestly, I wouldn't mind if this was maybe even part of a whole originals or standalone card game in general. You know, something like I was talking about, like just making a card game available on the Switch would just make me dance on the heart.
Yeah, this would be incredibly cool. I'm just thinking, and I want to throw this idea out there before I forget. What if all of your Pokemon are stored in these cards, and then the actual Switch game itself kind of plays out similarly to, you know, Pokemon Battle Revolution or Pokemon Stadium
or Batrio
where you can store your Pokemon in these cards and then scan them onto the Switch, regardless of which Switch you play with, and you can battle with the Pokemon you have in your pocket.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I like this.
Right? Interesting.
All right, so yeah, we'll let that ferment amongst the listeners and see if they can think of any other cool uses for this.
Man, I'm so excited to see what's coming out in the Pokemon franchise with the Nintendo Switch. That's something that really sparks a lot of people's creativity.
Okay, so staying in the realm of the litigiousness, we have Nyko actually being taken to court over the bricked Switch consoles. Some people have been, what was it? A Switch owner, Michaela Skiathitis?
Michael Skiathitis.
Michael Skiathitis. That's actually probably a good way to say it. So yeah, he filed a class action lawsuit from California against Nyko because of the situation we mentioned before of like some Nintendo Switches bricking through use of their specialty docks, and they say they didn't really warn people enough of the possible risks of using it. You know, here's the thing though, those class action things, I actually got an email about a class action lawsuit from the Penny Arcade Expo. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I haven't. What happened there?
I don't know what it was, but they just said, hey, here's your payout for some class action thing. And I got 70 cents sent to my my PayPal account.
Oh, proud of you.
Big 70 cents.
Rolling in the dough.
The lawyers always make out all, because they get like half of it to themselves, and then the rest gets split amongst like 50,000 people. So, so don't expect to see any money out of this. It might just be mostly for making a point, or so that the person who filed this will probably, make some decent cash.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how things come out of this, and if the companies themselves in some way have some recourse, or maybe they'll plan to do, maybe they'll complain to Nintendo about, hey, don't change the OS in a way that makes our stuff break people's Switches.
Yeah, I can see that. It's so strange that we have so many stories this week that's set in the courtroom, and I kind of feel like we should probably hop out of the courtroom into something a lot more comfortable. Like some cardboard, maybe.
Okay, yes. Tell us, what's some of the newest Labo news we got this week?
All right, so apparently we got the first third-party Nintendo Labo kits out there. And now I actually find this to be really interesting, since I had no idea Labo, or even the concept of cardboard cutouts for the Switch, would spread to third parties.
Yeah, especially not this fast. I mean, I know we mentioned last week, we saw that story about them trying to make the piano compatible with those rhythm games, but already it's totally standalone, like this guitar, like a whole like new object to make for the Labo.
Yeah, absolutely. So apparently, this is only available in Japan, but there is a third-party Nintendo Switch guitar that you can make out of cardboard. And it really makes me curious as to how this integrates with the Toy-Con software, or if it has its own set of software.
It actually ties in. You have to use the the garage, or the
Toy-Con Garage?
Yeah, the Toy-Con Garage, and I think it just gives you the instructions on how to make it work through there. But then, you also have the instructions on how to make the Toy-Con itself separately.
Yes, this is super cool, and I'm really excited to see what third parties are going to do with the Toy-Con Garage. That's incredibly cool to see third parties hopping on the Labo train.
I guarantee, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to guarantee we're going to see a garage band, a full Toy-Con garage band within
Toy-Con garage band. Oh, yeah. So now here's another thing. Did you happen to see the UPS store video regarding the Nintendo Labo?
I didn't see the whole video. I just saw the screenshots of this, but this really looked... This is just a funny way. Like, I love it when companies just want
interact with other companies.
They just kind of want to, like, jump on the buzz of something really super popular that's going on with Nintendo. And, like, Arby's does that all the time. They have, like, the Nintendo-themed little ads they do all the time.
Yeah, the Arby's is really well known for this, but what's incredibly cool is that you absolutely wouldn't expect such an interesting nod to Nintendo coming from UPS or the UPS store. So if you haven't seen this video already, the UPS store posted a call out to Nintendo directly, letting them know that they were inspired by the Toy-Cons, and that they built their own cardboard Nintendo Labo storage suitcase. And this suitcase folds up, fits every single Toy-Con toy in it. It closes up, it has its own cardboard lock, and rolls just like any other suitcase you'd expect. And at the very end of the video, it says, game respect game, Nintendo. So
they need to release.
It's very cool.
They need to release the PDF of how to make those. Like, that's how you go to the next step, because that looked totally legit. It solves a real problem that I've been mentioning. I've always said how my biggest problem with them is not having a place to keep them all, but at least having a case like that that's so adorably, like, appropriate, a Toy-Con that is the case for your other Toy-Cons. And that would give me a great storage solution. And it's just something that they've obviously made. And I think that they could just release that PDF. Yeah, I'll go to UPS. more often. Just
I would too.
Hooking us up with that.
You know, and it's such a perfect little cross promotion that they did because the UPS store is known for its cardboard boxes.
Yep.
Mostly for storage or shipping, but this is such an interesting and unique way to hop on the Labo hype train. Very good on them. I approve wholeheartedly.
Also, hopping on, not necessarily a train, but apparently someone has been hopping on a Nintendo Labo, I guess you could go the hype wheelchair? Then
hype wheelchair.
This is actually really cool. This is a practical application of the Toy-Con software in which someone in Japan posted a video where they actually used the motorcycle racer Toy-Con, hooked it up to their electric wheelchair, and are controlling it with the Toy-Con.
This is just so incredibly cool, and it really shows the potential of what Toy-Cons are capable of. It's far beyond a standard cardboard toy that we all expected and that some people made fun of. The fact that you can have practical uses of this, like the control scheme for a motorized wheelchair, I think it's such a cool and novel invention or application.
I know now we're going to see just this is only the first 2 weeks. We're going to see in the weeks to come so many cool ideas. Like, people are only going to try to top each other with Toy-Con inventions and semi-practical or just kind of ludicrous applications of these inventions. And it's only going to get more complex. And I think it's not going to be long before we start seeing a repository of different Toy-Con PDFs that people are going to start posting to invent their own new things. This is going to slowly blow up, I think.
I feel like you're right. There's already a repository for 3D printing models where you can download the 3D models for your own 3D printer. And it's called Thingiverse, and it's a big repository of 3D files. I feel like something equivalent should pop up for the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Labo.
Yeah, and it can even come with all the programming instructions and how to hook it up to this different stuff.
Yeah, how to utilize the Toy-Con Garage based on the template. Yeah, lots of possibilities there.
Yes, I'm excited to see where this is going. This is cool. It's happening in very interesting ways.
It's happening.
What else is happening? Yes. Soon, JB.
All right, so within the month of May, it looks like we may be getting additional details about the Nintendo Switch Online service. We already know a couple of details. Like, we know that it's going to be a $19.99 annual subscription, or I believe it's $4 monthly and $8 every 3 months. It's already a competitive price, but we don't know exactly what comes with it.
So basically what this means to me is that we have to stay on our toes, because probably as I'm posting this podcast, they're going to announce a Nintendo Direct with the online information or something this month. We're going to get some sort of surprise information drop that's going to finally spell out some more things for us.
Jeez. Knowing our luck, that's going to happen, but I'm hoping that it doesn't. I'm hoping that we are able to cover this in a timely manner.
Well, we will be able to cover at least the E3 stuff that's going on this year, knowing what's going to be presented in advance. And Nintendo has posted a lot of their events, and we've talked about some of them before, like the Splatoon 2 World Championship that's going to be happening there. But it sounds like they're really pushing the Smash Brothers Invitational. They really want to make that the centerpiece of their E3 presentation this year. And I think that's probably a smart thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that builds hype, and it's something that people are interested in.
Right. So other than that, I mean, we just have different schedules for the tournament there, but we'll probably see a whole bunch on that. Also, they mention, this is just a rumor at this point, but it's come from a fairly reliable rumor or leak dropper in the past, but we may be getting a Fortnite revelation during E3. And I know that was one of your your system Switch picks, wasn't it?
Yeah, Fortnite is a phenomenon, or even just battle royale games as a whole. It's a real phenomenon, and I would love for games like Fortnite or even PUBG to come out on the Nintendo Switch.
It's in the Fortnite is in the same genre. It's the same style of game as PUBG.
Yes, it is a battle royale style game where you have 100 players. You're dropped from the air into the ground, and you're trying to kill off each other as the area that you're able to move around in shrinks slowly but surely.
Okay.
It's a battle royale style game that is really taking off nowadays.
Right. And also, in case, some people were originally afraid this couldn't make it to Switch because of capabilities, but as we reported in weeks past, it has been brought to mobile consoles with great success, so there's really no reason that it can't come to Switch. So we're looking, if the leak is true, we are looking at a very positive possibility for this there.
Yeah, I think there is a non-zero chance that it'll happen.
Yeah, and that would be very good. I'd be very happy to get into this, honestly, because this is a genre I've been looking to test the waters with.
Absolutely. All right, so for regarding another rumor, apparently Capcom listed an action-adventure game for E3 2018 this year. Now, we don't know what it's about, but we do know that it's coming to the Nintendo Switch. I'm hoping it might be Monster Hunter related, but
I don't even want to say it. I didn't want to say it. I don't want to.
Did I just jinx it? I think I just jinxed it.
Jinxed it.
No! I ruined everything. Should I say? Could it be Phantasy Star?
Oh wow! Even worse. Just twist the knife. Just twist it. Fine.
We'll see.
You know what? You could twist that knife if it means we get Monster Hunter. That's fine.
Okay. I'll make it worse so that we get the second thing that me might want. Okay. But we know nothing so far except for rumors. That's about it.
And lastly, in the headlines, it looks like goes way back that people, when the Switch was first released, some people were talking about how the left Joy-Con sometimes had connectivity issues for certain people. But I guess they never really addressed it directly. There was a manufacturing flaw that caused some of them to be faulty or not connect as much. And I think people have been sending theirs in if that ever happens and we get it replaced. But I guess that they'll finally stop making ones that do go bad.
Yeah, well, the quote they had was, "The number is not significant. The total number of repair or replacement requests for Nintendo Switch, including for Joy-Con, is consistent with what we've seen for any new hardware Nintendo has launched."
Okay.
So it's interesting that they addressed that this is a thing, but then they're filing a new registration to fix the hardware.
Okay, so it's not like a prevalent problem. It's probably something that affects maybe like 1% of people, which is, to be expected. There's some defaults some defects to happen, but it sounds like they're going to eliminate at least this one from future models. Yeah. And we haven't really been hearing that many reports of this happening recently, so it's nice that they're just, putting the last nail in that coffin. All right, moving into updates. Chucklefish actually showed off a video featuring the multiplayer update for Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah, this is huge, especially for our community, because Stardew Valley is a very popular game and is still having an active Discord presence within our community. So the multiplayer functionality is really something we're all looking forward to.
Yeah, it's funny because actually I think I'm at the point in the game where I decided to take a break from it until multiplayer came out. So I'll be happy to dive back into the game once this is a thing and I can enjoy it with more people. And because I'm kind of like, I focused on all my one-player goals in the game, and now I'm just more concerned with having a social thing to do with it with actually other players. But it's in beta now on the PC, so if anyone actually wants to try it who also has it on PC, you could maybe be able to log in and try it out. Yeah.
It's a beta, so you might as well test out how it's going to work. Though, considering our community, I think everyone's really looking forward to it coming out on the Switch.
Yes, when it should be pretty soon.
Yes. Now, it looks like there was a bit of a bug on the South Park, the fractured hole save file. There was a corruption bug for save files, but now it's going to be fixed on the next update.
Okay.
So good stuff.
In Super Mario Odyssey, new update gives you the topper hat and suit. I guess that's the green hats and like very St. Patrick's Day kind of looking thing with the rabbit, one of the rabbit guys. Those what do they call those bad guys again? The Brutals.
Brutals, right.
Yeah, Topper, I guess, is that. Yeah, the green one. The next Splatoon Splatfest actually has an interesting twist on it. They're doing a kind of a, I guess, a cross promotion with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Nickelodeon cartoon.
Yeah, so Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's the new Nickelodeon cartoon for that franchise.
So they're breaking it up into a different way. It's going to be a tournament of all four of them. And throughout this, they're going to basically be doing, so May 4th and 5th, it's going to be Raph versus Leo. And then May 11th and 12th, it's going to be Michelangelo versus Donatello. And then the finals will be the winners of those two.
Between those two.
Yeah, of whoever wins those two. So to see who's the best or the favorite turtle.
So, to be honest, my favorite is Donatello. Just because, he's the nerdy, gadgety type guy. I loved him from the very beginning, and he was my turt.
Okay.
He was my turtle.
I think my favorite always was Michelangelo because I think he took.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he took it the least.
Really?
Yeah, he was my favorite. He took it the least seriously. Like all the others, he's like the only one who realized, hey, I'm a mutant turtle cartoon character. Okay. And I'm and he had my favorite of the weapons. I like the nunchucks he did.
I only expressed my exasperation because round 2 of the Splatfest is literally Mikey versus Donnie. So
I did not plan that.
Wait, really?
No, I didn't. I literally didn't look at that and say, "Oh, I need to pick the opposite of."
No, yeah, well, we never do. Yeah, but it's just funny how it turned out that way.
I don't feel I relate to any of the Ninja Turtles. I've never felt like any of them is like my spirit turtle, so it's just I'm just going with whoever my favorite as a kid was.
Yeah, no, that's fair. My favorite was Donatello, so go Donnie, you can do it.
Oh, they beat
all these guys.
They change up Raphael's weapons. He doesn't have size anymore. He has Tonfa.
Maybe because size are too pointy.
He has Tonfa.
Yeah, which is cool.
Okay, all right. I can see that. Something different. Something that's a little more practical, because sais aren't actually a weapon. Those are, they're defensive. They're like they catch swords.
They can clasp. Yeah, they can clasp onto swords and like restrict their movement, but they can't really fight back.
And finally, the next party crash is going to be a clash of the originals, Springman versus Ninjara.
Yeah. Conflict of interests.
Yes.
Very cool.
All right, so the new releases. Why don't you tell us what's coming out this week, JV?
All right, so on May 3rd today, we are getting Nihilumbra, Don't Die, Mr. Robot, Perfect Angle, Timberman Versus, Professional Construction, The Simulation, Johnny Turbo's Arcade, Sly Spy, Cast of the Seven Godsends, Redux, Japanese Mahjong, just Mahjong,
yeah,
but Japanese. On May 4th, we're getting Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, so a really well-regarded Wii U game coming to the Nintendo Switch. There's a bit of a controversy regarding its price point since it is standard full $60 price. But that is a good game, and if you haven't played it before, it comes highly recommended. And on May 8th, we're getting Shantae, Half Genie Hero Ultimate Edition, and Raging Justice!
Down the pipe, these are games that have just been announced or have just gotten release dates. The Adventures of Elena Temple, which is a weird kind of it's like a Game Boy level graphics dungeon explorer platformer game. The new Zen Studios title was just revealed today. Disco Dodgeball Remix looks like a crazy multiplayer cyber robots throwing disco balls at each other to techno music. Pretty crazy with the new title.
Yeah, that's it. I definitely want to dig into that a bit further.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Owlboy Physical Collector's Edition was shown off with some really snazzy looking, bookish kind of boxes for the physical version of this game. Ikaruga, the legendary shoot 'em up, is coming out May 29th. I think that's probably the top shmup game that's I can think of, honestly.
It's very infamous for being brutally hard.
Yeah, but it also has that really crazy mechanic where you switch your polarity between this like white and black. So you can choose basically, because everyone shoots in either white or black lasers, and you can basically choose, I want to be invincible to white, I want to be invincible to black, and you have to switch and your eyes just go crazy.
Yeah.
Chicken Assassin Reloaded coming out July 17th. Finally, release date for Flipping Death. I feel like this has been coming out for a very long time, at least on Switch, but that's coming in August, it looks like now. That's the game where you flip between the living and the dead world, and you have to, like, stuff you do in the world of the dead affects the real life world.
World of the living. Right.
And Eastward, this is the new Chucklefish game that was shown off this week, and it looks kind of cool. It looks like almost like an abandoned or post-apocalyptic world. Not like super, just like almost the city's been abandoned, and has kind of a Secret of Mana feel, honestly, because you're these two characters and you can swap between them, but there's a little combat, a little puzzle solviness. And it's a pretty beautiful art style too. Very kind of somber look to it, though. It's cool.
Honestly, it kind of reminds me of Last of Us, mixed with a top-down Secret of Mana style game.
Yeah, it does have kind of that, with a little more like very anime type monsters, but yeah, it does have like that. It looks.
Yeah, especially with a pairing between the younger girl character and the older
fatherly
older
type.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we go into the Community Pulse and see what the people are thinking this week?
All right, let's do it.
All right, Community Pulse. This week, I decided to take a topic from the Facebook group that got a lot of energy behind it this week. The main topic was actually introduced by Guillermo Lopez on the Facebook group, and it's basically just brought up the Switch Virtual Console and whether people are going to be upset or not should it not be announced as a thing with the online service. And so we get some reactions to that. I'll kick it off with Paul Ingleby's response. He said, "I would have agreed with you 6 months ago that he'd be upset. But I am over that now. The store seems to be filling nicely, but it does need a few more classics. Due to the power, compared to the 3DS, etc., it would be nice if the classic GameCube or Wii games were on there, and if they can sort out the split screen issue, maybe some 3DS games further down the line."
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the fact that they're releasing all of these old school games on the eShop independent of any quote-unquote virtual console, it really removes the necessity of that virtual console title or label. I think if they just naturally release games back then, that's just how it is.
Yeah, I do feel like I agree that like 6 months ago, I personally was also kind of like, ooh, where's this virtual console? I was kind of, but it does feel like the games are coming out as is, and we're just not getting Nintendo's own kind of old collections. But I've already seen a lot of like announcements of like even the Atari, old Atari games coming out to there. So it does feel like I don't need it necessarily.
Yes. So another really good comment comes from Tim Moore. He says, "It's possible that Nintendo is looking in a new direction / model. Well, new to them, familiar to those on PlayStation Plus, etc. Instead of selling older games a la carte like Virtual Console, using the older titles as bait to keep you subscribed to their online system and giving you 1 to 3 titles per month to keep forever, as long as you're subscribed to their service. That sounds like it's better." So yeah, I agree. I actually do think that this might be what they're looking to do. They have such an amazing backlog of games throughout the decades. I feel like they have such a unique offering that is a PlayStation Plus style subscription. this is a really good incentive for people to really invest in the Nintendo online system.
Now, the only reservation I might have with that online system with the classic games is if the games are on a rotational basis, like there's only going to be 3 now and then a different 3, and you don't have access to what they had last month.
The way PlayStation Plus sets it is that each of the games are only given out monthly. So a set of games are given out in January, a different set of games are given out in February, etc., etc., etc. But if you downloaded the game in January, as long as it's still in your account, you can download it and play it throughout the year as long as you still have a subscription.
Yeah. I just hope that Nintendo, if they do it this way, that's the model they follow, and not necessarily just make it like a rotational thing of like,
right.
Whatever's out this month is not going to be available next month at all, even if you've had it then and there. But we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. Next up, Aaron Meza wrote, not that big a deal, to be honest. I'm more focused on tomorrow than yesterday. I mean, I guess there is something to be said for not having such a huge focus on playing games from 20 years ago on your new Switch. I mean, obviously, it's something a lot of people like, but it shouldn't be a make or break feature for a system, not something that gets you really upset that you can't play super old games when, honestly, I have a lot of super new games to play right now, too.
Right, exactly. There's so much on the horizon and in the present that it might not even be that big of a crux if the older games don't come out. So, lastly, from Dane Brooks, he says, if they don't release classic Nintendo games in any form in the Switch, I'll be a bit disappointed. But if they don't call it Virtual Console and they're just released in a different way, I'd be fine with that. And I think ultimately that's what it is. I don't know if the Virtual Console label is even necessary nowadays.
I do think they might be best off getting away from that term. It does kind of have its own definition in people's minds right now, and it's kind of like, the way people are demanding this thing that's a very narrow way of looking at it, and it's kind of got people blinded to the fact that there are old school games available in a lot of different ways right now, that and that's why people are like, oh, where's the Virtual Console? It's like, well, it's already kind of there. They just don't call it that, so you feel like you're missing something.
Yeah, exactly. And the label Virtual Console was very useful back in the Wii days because it is essentially a different way to phrase emulation that allows people to grasp it without any of the piracy, baggage that comes with the word emulation. Mm-hmm. Now that we're all used to the concept of buying old games on an eShop, I think it's unnecessary nowadays.
That could be it. All right, why don't we close out the show with our traditional system switch, in which JV and I both pick games that are either not available on the Switch or available elsewhere that we hope to see it brought over in some time. And what have you been pining for this week, JV?
So I have actually been playing a lot of God of War. Now, this is 100% absolutely not going to come to the Switch, especially since it is practically a first-party title for Sony and the PS4. But I've been loving God of War. It is a now third-person action beat-em-up game that's really grasped what makes open-world games like Zelda and like Horizon Zero Dawn great, while making the fundamental gameplay still be a beat-em-up game.
Oh, it's an open-world game now?
It's not open world, but it is like a wider exploration world. There's different large regions, and then you go into a hub world to switch to the different regions. And I love it so much.
Very cool.
In the PS3 era, the God of War franchise was kind of bro-y.
Oh,
hey, I'm Kratos. I'm a hulky steroided guy, and I'm just gonna kill the next god. In this case, in God of War for the PS4, they really honed down on the character and focused on his relationship with his son.
Oh, that's where all these memes come from. I see nothing. The Discord has been full of the memes. Was it
It's like, oh, boy.
Disappointed Father Simulator 2018?
Yeah, stuff like that. And it's definitely given Kratos a new interesting dimension, and I just love how they translated the fundamental gameplay of God of War into the new era.
Keep the memes coming, guys. Keep the memes flowing. The memes,
boy.
My pick actually this week goes back to what I was just saying before about my real need for some meaty strategy games, and I think of few that are less available and more fulfilling, and maybe even more obscure, few that are more obscure than the Ogre Battle series. In particular, March of the Black Queen. This was on SNES, and
wow. Way to go, super niche, Casey.
This was one of my... You don't understand, I have a very strong history of this game. I had to hunt this game down. This was even obscure and hard to find on the SNES at the height of the system. And it took me about a year of rummaging through used bins to find a copy of this game. But this was an Enix strategy RPG with some very unique kind of features to it. There's other Ogre battles that play differently, but this one had, first off, it had this cool character creation system where they give you a tarot card reading and you have to answer personality questions, and that defines your starting stats and class in the game, which is pretty awesome thematically right off the bat.
Yeah.
But then there's like this strategy setup where you send out units and you make each unit by filling it in like with different types of soldiers. You'd be like, okay, I want you to have, 2 soldiers up front, an archer and a mage in the back, or I want you to have a griffin and you can fly and this is a water unit and all that kind of thing. But when units go into battle, you don't actually control them directly. You just get to, since you're just a commander, you give them general orders of how to fight. You can tell them, I want you to always attack the strongest. I want you to attack the weakest unit. I want you to aim for the leader. Things like that. And you give them those general orders when they go into battle, and you watch them play out in like an RPG style when they fight another unit. And there was lots of RPG elements, like the way that you fought battle, the people's opinion of you changed, and so did your alignment. So you had these two things to balance. You had to balance your reputation, which was basically how great and feared you were as a general. And then there's your alignment, which is changed based on if you just did very underhanded tactics, and if you were... employed a lot of like zombies and vampires and stuff like that, your alignment changed. And all these things affected the story elements of the game. Like when you went to a certain town, do the people know that you're evil? Will this guy join your army? If, and there's bad guys too that will only join you if you're evil enough for them. And all sorts of crazy decisions and storyline changes based on those two parameters. And there was all sorts of different endings. And I got 2 of the worst endings in the game. I was assassinated once, and I got taken over by a demon in the other, and I don't know why the game kept thinking I was evil. The game kept telling me I was evil, and I didn't know what choices I was making was sending me that way, but man.
Maybe you were being ruthless with your units and
I was
sacrificing
being
them.
very... You know what this is? It might be the kind of game because you don't want to have overpowered units, and I'm very trained to always be leveling guys up as carefully as possible, but you would lose alignment if you were just like, haha, my level 30s are crushing your level 10s, and that makes you look like a bad guy. So you have to kind of be the underdog in order to... prove your nobility. So you have to keep your guys low level and beat up stronger units with them through your tactics to prove how honorable you are.
I guess. I do like the concept that the gameplay of that you're playing affects the story direction.
Yeah.
And it's a really good take, and it does sound like it's a pity that it's not really a thing anymore.
And yeah, it was so beautiful. And there's so many other mechanics to it I can't go into. I could talk to for a while, but it was very in-depth, and there were so many different ways to, tweak your strategies. Anyway, I'm hungry for a game like that. I wouldn't mind. I bring it to the quote-unquote virtual console, will you?
Yeah.
Come on.
We'll see.
Square has it. It's in the Square Enix library. I think that it would be a great fit somewhere on the Switch shop.
Come on, Squeenix. Bring it out.
All right, well, that's our show for this week. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope you all got something out of it, and I hope you're all hyped to listen to us next time. And until that next time,
switch it up!
Thanks for listening. You can support the SwitchCast by visiting us at patreon.com/theswitchcast and join the review crew by rating us and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Also, check out our Discord chat where we have an enthusiastic bunch of Switch fans in a family-friendly environment. Also, join our Facebook group for daily discussion and quite a bit of activity towards the Switch itself.
You can also contact us directly via email at kc@theswitchcast.com and jv@theswitchcast.com. Talk to us on Twitter @theswitchcast.
Thank you, HeatleyBros, for the theme music. And check us out on our website at theswitchcast.com, where we will post all relevant links and show notes.
Promotional considerations provided by publishers in the form of review copies of games. Barrister. You familiar with the Barrister?
Yeah, I'm a Nintendo Switch barrister, and so is everyone else here.
Really? They all have law degrees?
Oh. I totally just guessed.